right, we are back to talk PWHL on our new venture here at Black Rosie Media that as of right now, we're calling the 206 Sports Collective. My name is Erica Ayala. I am the founder of Black Rosie Media, also an accredited media member for Milano Cortina. That's right. Black Rosie Media once again will be at the Olympics, and I can't wait to cover the women's and men's ice hockey tournaments and maybe do a little bit of storytelling about some other, especially Black athletes in Italy. But I am joined by Ava Wood, who of course is the mastermind behind 365 Hockey Girl. And we are speaking the afternoon after the first Seattle Torrent game. It was an away game. They took on the Vancouver Goldeneyes. And Ava, you were on that bus. Women's Pro Hockey Seattle organized a bus of people to go up. I think it was about 50 or so of you on the bus, another 50 or so that traveled independently. And you all were there to see the Seattle Torrent take on the Vancouver Goldeneyes. So Ava, I'm going to let you just kind of give us the vibes. Like, what was the whole situation? What were y'all doing on the bus ride? What was it like in the arena? Tell us all the things.
Oh my God, it was so awesome. So first of all, shout out to Alicia, shout out to Zoe for organizing everything. I think it was just a great way to make it accessible for folks that don't like driving. Like I personally don't have a car. I don't like driving. So that was awesome. And then I feel like everybody's always talking about like the Seattle freeze, but like there was no Seattle freeze on that bus. Like I went with my friend Becca and we showed up kind of late and we're like, oh no, we're gonna have to like split up seats. But then it was like people next to us were like talking to us. We were like exchanging stories of like how we got into PWHL. So like we were even building community just like on the trip up there. And they were even doing like trivia and like giveaways on the bus. So yeah, it was great.
I mean, I know King 5 was covering y'all. We saw that posted. There was so much excitement. I know some of the broadcasters that we will be able to hear for the Seattle Torrent for their home game coming up also made the trip. Okay, so Pacific Coliseum. We know that they are doing it very, very... I guess what I'm trying to say is they are definitely unique in the PWHL. We know it's the primary tenant situation, which means also that the Vancouver Goldeneyes have their logo center ice, which we do not see for other teams since they are sharing the ice with other mostly men's teams. So when you go to an arena, it's the first game of an inaugural team's season. And they are being introduced to their team for the first time. Ava, what was that like?
Yeah, no, it was crazy. It felt kind of like a Valhalla situation, like because you walk in, like even just walking in, like on all of like the pillars, like they have like the faces of the players up, and then like the way that Pacific Coliseum is kind of structured, it's almost kind of open. So when you go in, you can kind of peek, you can almost see the ice. And you're like walking out and then you walk in and it's like, whoa, like it's just Goldeneyes everything. And then like everybody was in line for merch. I was like, I'm not getting in that line.
I was just going to ask, you were like, no, the line's too long. I can't do it.
Yeah. And then also like everybody was already in their gear. And like, I ran into so many Vancouver fans, like people that I knew just from the internet. And then like people that knew me from the internet coming up to me like, hey, like we love your work. And like, they're just so excited about Goldeneyes. So it was like honestly overwhelming. Like the excitement in the building was like overwhelming. I'm serious. Like even compared to like the takeover game, like it was completely different because the takeover game was also sold out. But like the fact that it's like, okay, this is actually our team now. We're invested in this. Like it just took it to a different level. So
it looked amazing. The intros looked amazing. We were talking off air. We disagree with them leaning into the James Bond of it all. I liked it when I watched it on the stream. You were like, absolutely not.
Okay, I feel like objectively it's probably cool, but like as a Seattle fan, I'm gonna chirp them for whatever. Like I'm always gonna be like, oh, that's corny, that's corny.
So that's fair. All right. So you were like in game mode, which is why like you couldn't like after a certain time you were like, okay, like I'm over it. Like let's get into game mode is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. They also had a whole bit called Flock of Fame where they would like it was called Flock of Fame. It was actually cool. I was just chirping them for the name being Flock of Fame, but it was actually cool because they would like show like different athletes that were there. Like they had members of Vancouver Rise in the crowd, and also
who just won a championship, which is awesome. Yes. That's the new Canadian Women's Soccer League. Yeah.
And they also have a non-binary player that used to play for Seattle Reign too. So I was like,
Quinn is there. I didn't realize Quinn was playing in Vancouver. Okay, that makes sense. Quinn is definitely a part of the national team, the Canadian national team, an Olympian, like you said, has played for the Seattle Reign. We saw the other Captain Canada, Christine Sinclair, drop the puck. She was on the broadcast and like she got really animated when she came out to the ice for the puck drop. And so the broadcast was like, did you plan that? And Christine Sinclair was like, honestly, like I heard the crowd and it just felt right. Like it just felt right. And I feel like that is exactly what we want from, in the case of Christine Sinclair, now retired athletes who are also like iconic, legendary, not just because she's involved with the Vancouver Rise right now, not just because, again, she's like a Canadian legend. She is a women's sports legend as far as I'm concerned. That was super cool.
She's a sports legend, and she's also a Pacific Northwest legend, just when I think of like Portland, right?
Portland, so, yeah. I'm actually wearing a Portland, this is Winterhawks, but the women of the Rose City, they for their women's hockey night, I did something with them a few years ago. Anyway, but that's true. That is a good point. I didn't, I don't always think of always about the Pacific Northwest just being more of that national view for so long. But you're right. Christine Sinclair was there. Megan Augusta was there. I think people had an interesting reaction in the comments because for those who don't know, she, even when she was still active and playing, was always a part of the police force. I'll leave that for people to interpret and say what they want. But I just feel like putting some of that aside, and even how I may feel, if you want to know how I feel, go to ElinZ08 on all platforms and you will find out really quickly. Anyway, I think I got chills for me. So I didn't know that they were calling it Flock of Fame. I didn't pick up on that from the broadcast, and maybe it's a good thing because I don't love the name. It's giving me like Flock of, what was that 80s band? Like Flock of Seagulls? Is that what, like, I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know that. I was thinking like Waka Flocka. That was like the first thing I heard about that.
Yeah, we're from different eras, but anyway, I thought it's so funny. I was on with Sylvia and I was like, I can never say error and era the right way when I need to. But anyway, that's a New York accent thing. But I thought it was really cool. And so there were others. So it was Christine Sinclair, Megan Augusta. Those are the two people I definitely pointed out on the broadcast. I think there was like some man that they showed at some point. I was like, I don't know you. I think it was like a football, like Canadian football. I don't watch American football, so I was like, sorry to this man.
I also saw that Patrick Chan was there. Like they didn't show him on like the Jumbotron thing, but I thought that was cool. Like figure skating, ice hockey.
I was like, yeah, it's figure skating. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's cool. So, okay. Don't love the name Flock of Fame. I get it though. I mean, it's kind of right there. I liked them leaning into James Bond. I don't know. I don't really know enough about like bird watching or bird culture to, maybe get some of the references. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Another point though is that like this is just the beginning, right? So even if you look at like the intros, it's like, well, they just had media day, so the intro is just them from like media day. But like I think there's going to be so much more that they can do like with some more time as far as like the actual branding, the introductions, and like really making that place their own.
I think it's going to be really cool to see how Seattle does on Friday. So that's going to be interesting. Less than a week away. I'm very curious. You're like, I'm scared.
Seattle just had their media day, so I'm like, I mean, we have videos of like waterfalls, so we can use that. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to be Kraken level yet.
Kraken is elite. I mean, I just have to say the Kraken is elite. Sometimes it's like almost too much, but then I'm like, oh, Jerry Bruckheimer is one of the owners. So You know, like, but not in a bad way. It's like, did I need all of that? Probably not. Did it work? Absolutely. Like, that's how I feel about it.
I'm literally at a movie. I'm like, this should be given an Oscar.
For real. No, 100%. Like, if there is a category, and I mean, let's keep it real. Our broadcast team, the Seattle Kraken, that is, they are Emmy award winning multiple times over. So there's that. I mean, everything is just great, which again is why knowing that Piper and Allison, I believe, I know for sure Allison Lucan is going to be involved. From what I understand, Piper is also going to be involved. I don't know who play-by-play is going to be, but I mean, those two alone, as it's known, the experience is going to be a part of the Seattle Torrent. That's super exciting. I really hope they let them cook. I know from the first year of PWHL New York, air quotes for those who are listening on audio, for PWHL New York, I know for a fact that the PR person and that team from that first year, they put in a lot of money into the on ice product and some of that marketing media stuff. And they were like, well, we definitely got some heat for this, but we want to make it look good. And it certainly did. So I know in the past teams have really leaned into that. So I'm hoping that we see that for Seattle. Okay. This was something that came up on the broadcast because, you know, they cut to whatever they're going to cut to. Was the Seattle Torrent introduced like at all, or did they just kind of like skate out onto the ice?
They skated out.
Oh my God. Brutal.
Yeah. But it was okay. Honestly, so another thing to bring up is that so everybody from the bus, we got group tickets. So we were all sitting kind of like in a section together. So we were all cheering really loud. And I don't know if you could hear that from the broadcast. Could you hear it at all?
I didn't pick up on it. That's not to say that I didn't clock it, I should say. And I think it's because, in fairness, it was super loud. Yeah. And so anytime Seattle did something, because of course we're going to get into this, but Julia Gosling scores 2 times. Anytime Seattle did something, like the drop off in noise was so significant. So it's not, I don't want to say like that y'all weren't loud, but comparative. And also I'll just put this out there for people who maybe don't know, like crowd noise, when you have a home team, like they'll point the mics in a certain way. And so it might just have been that was the case. I will just say, like, it was noticeably like the volume, it was like someone ripped out the aux or something anytime Seattle did something. But I think that's more of a testament. That's not an indictment on y'all. I think it's honestly, and respectfully, because I know you're rooting for Seattle, but I think it's just a testament to how loud the Vancouver fans were. It seemed like it was loud in there.
Yeah, I feel like the first period, it was like a little like, I don't want to say quiet, but like both sides were a little bit tentative. But like definitely That's like fair. The second and third periods, I was like, like it's gonna loud.
Well, it ended up being a really good game, and so let's talk about that. You know, this was the first preseason. This was the first regular season game for both of these teams. Excuse me. Ooh. Let me do that again. This was the first regular season game for both of these teams. Both of these teams come into the league at the same time together, right? And so they pit them against each other in the opener. So let's just quickly go over some of the lines. I know we're definitely going to lean into Seattle more, but I just want to read also what Vancouver's lines were. So we had Michelle Carvinen, Sarah Nurse, and Michaela Cava, Jen Gardner, Hannah Miller, and Izzy Daniel. We had Gabby Rosenthal centering Teresa Vanishova on the left and Abby Boreen on the right. That was a pretty significant line. And then Brooke McQuigg, Darcy Lepan, and Katie Chan. In net, we saw Emirates Mashmeyer. You had Ashton Bell, who's the captain, and someone that I pointed out that could be captain material on my last appearance on the Women's Hockey Report, which is part of the Locked On NHL channel. But Ashton Bell with Claire Thompson, Melissa Channel-Watkins with Sophie Jakes, Sydney Bard with Emma Greco, and then the rookie Madison Samaskevich was also suited up for that game. You know, we saw that Anna Szigeti, who had been traded for Denisa Kryshova, she was a healthy scratch in this game, as was Nina Job-Smith And well, she's on LTIR, so obviously it was a scratch. And then goaltender Kimberly Newell, Kristen Campbell, aka Soupy, suited up for the Goldeneyes. Now, when it came to the Seattle Torrent, we had Daniel Serdachny centering Hannah Bilka on the left, Jesse Eldridge on the right. Then we had Alex Carpenter centering Julia Gosling on the left, Hillary Knight on the right, Lexia Gia on the left with Bucky, Michaela Grant-Mentis as a center, and Natalie Snodgrass on the right side. And then Jenna Buglioni, the rookie, centering Mara Wagner, local, native to Seattle, and Brooke Bryant. Corrine Schroeder, started in net. And we saw that Hannah Murphy was the goaltender that dressed for this game. Anna Wilgren, Kayla Barnes, Emily Brown, Aneta Terelova, who we'll talk about, unfortunately, in a little bit, in how the game ended for her. And then Megan Carter and Mariah Keppel. So, I know that we've been at the practices. Were any of these lines a little interesting to you? I think we were trying to get a handle on what the final lines would be in the final practice. I think for the most part, at least from what I can remember and looking over my notes, it was about what we expected, Ava.
Yeah, I think it was what we expected. I think it was obviously different from what they did in the scrimmages. So it was one of those situations where it's like, yeah, we've seen this at training camp, but we don't know how it's going to translate to the actual game. Thankfully, right. I think it translated very well, especially with like the Gosling and Knight connection. I was really enjoying that. So yeah, I really like this look.
Yeah, 100%. And, you mentioned Gosling and Hillary Knight. Julia Gosling was looking pretty good in that game, got the first 2 goals of the game for Seattle. The first 2 goals of the game, Julia Gosling scored the first goal for either expansion team. And then Sarah Nurse will go in the history books as the first player to score for the Vancouver Goldeneyes. That's right, Team More Melanin. We love Sarah Nurse here at Black Rosie Media for sure. So we love to see that. But let's talk about Knight and Gosling. Why do you think that combo was working so well? What did you observe and see being able to watch them play Vancouver?
Yeah, so what really excites me about this is that, like, I feel like Julia Gosling can learn so much from Hillary Knight because they're both players that are like 5'11", bigger type of players that can really be net front. And on that first goal, it's like they're both standing in front of the net. What are you going to do?
Yeah, so, 100%.
Like, yeah, that's cool to put them together. And then also what stands out to me here is that Julia Gosling, Kyle Cushman actually tweeted this out, which I didn't realize, but Julia Gosling did not score a 5v5 goal through 30 games in the regular season last year with the Scepters.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
Not a single 5v5 goal, and no shade to my girl. Shout out Julie Gosling, but it's like, this comes back to what I've been saying about these players being underrated. And maybe not even underrated in the sense that, like, maybe she was correctly rated if you're just looking at stats, but I'm talking about she's a first round draft pick, and maybe now we're seeing why she was that first round draft pick, right? This is her sophomore season. Maybe her rookie season made her become underrated, and now we're going to see her take her game to the next level. And there's no better person for her to work with in that regard, I think, than Hillary Knight. So I'm excited not just from what I saw last night, but for what implications this could have through the season. Like, is this sustainable for her? I guess we'll find out.
100%. And I think that goes to, we talk about this on the men's side, especially as someone who covers the Seattle Kraken. Like, when you are coming to an expansion team, a lot of the guys are looking for opportunity. It's a chance for them to be not maybe the second option or a utility player, but to be the guy, right? And I think it goes the same for the Seattle Torrent and the Vancouver Goldeneyes. But to your point, this was the second career multi-goal game for Julia Gosling. As you said, first even strength tallies in regular season action. She scored on a career high 6 shots, and that gives her 5 goals in her last 5 games dating back to the playoffs from last year. As you mentioned, she was with Toronto. And so I think that's really cool that, again, Gosling is going to be someone working alongside Hillary Knight. I mean, a seasoned vet, obviously, who's coming to Seattle. But I think for me, like you said, this Seattle team, and we kind of knew this, right? Coming in, Ava, this Seattle team has said that they want to play gritty, that they're going to be a hard team to play against. And I do think we saw that. And I think that, there's a few thoughts that I have. I will say, I think they also went up against a team, maybe because it's another expansion team, but definitely because it's a team that Karamori is putting together that also is going to play that gritty, intense game. And from my eye test, Ava, it looked like at times Vancouver was playing that game better than Seattle.
There was definitely some moments where some Torrent players ended up on their butts, I will say. But from the final stat sheet, we still had more hits. So no comment.
No comment. So just to go over some stats here, power plays, neither team was able to convert on the power play. The shots evened out 27 aside. They were basically even the whole way through, with Seattle actually outshooting Vancouver in the third, but it was 8-6. And Vancouver also technically outshot Seattle in the first, but again, 12-11. I think that for me, yes, definitely players on their butts. Again, more penalties assessed for Seattle. Now, that was something I didn't necessarily agree with. I do think there were some things that I was like, ooh, okay, you definitely could have blown the whistle on that and given Seattle a power play. I don't even think they got their first and only power play until late in the game, as I recall. So that was interesting to see. I think it's interesting to see. It will be interesting to see how the Seattle Torrent, Ava, play a team other than Vancouver, because that will happen for the first time in their home opener. But let's talk about takeaways. I think that they got the first goal. Then Sarah Nurse scored. They were able to get another goal from Julia Gosling. So we saw there was a back and forth there, but they did concede, a goal late for Vancouver, which is why we went to overtime. So what are your big takeaways here, especially ahead of the home opener?
Yeah, so in the post-game media availability, Coach O'Rourke actually described a lot of those goals on Seattle as self-inflicted, which I somewhat agree with, because ultimately it felt like, yeah, a lot of those goals we gave up could have been prevented. They were due to mistakes, but I read into that more. So like, hey, you know what? This team has only been together for 2 weeks. Granted, Vancouver has also only been together for 2 weeks, but a lot of those mistakes that they made were just that. They were mistakes. They're not indicative of like a pattern to me at this point of the Torrent. So like those are things that they can clean up. Whereas like the good things that we saw excite me a lot, especially considering that our goal scorers were Gosling and Bilka, who are like two of the sophomores that we got in the expansion draft. And having those players on the score sheet just makes me so excited, because obviously everybody's going to talk about Hillary Knight. Everybody's going to talk about Alex Carpenter. But at the end of the day, like, what excites me the most about this team are those younger players, are those sophomores like Bilka, like Gosling, like hopefully Sir Dackney if she can have a breakout season. Like, those are the players where I see so much potential, and I'm like, this is what could win us the Walter Cup. So honestly, my takeaways from that are I see so much potential here. I'm excited.
100%. And I do agree, self-inflicted. Like I said, I do think Vancouver played the speed game better. There were times where the Seattle Torrent were playing on their back heel. What I liked, though, because I'm always someone that's going to see the game through a defensive eye, I do think that they were recovering relatively well. But again, some of the self-inflicted wounds, and that goes back to communication, understanding assignments, etc. But for them to go to overtime in their first ever game, a few nuggets, just going back to Gosling. I have a quote from her, a quote from Steve O'Rourke, Julia saying, on scoring the Torrent's first ever goal. That puts her in a league, if you will, with Ryan Donato, one of my favorite Kraken players ever. Now, Ryan Donato scored the first ever Kraken goal, but I believe it was Vince Dunn that scored the first ever Kraken home game. So we'll have to see who joins him to have that honor at Climate Pledge Arena. But here is what we heard from Julia Gosling. I was super pumped to get one in. Actually got two, but I understand. We're working really hard. We were working really hard that period and battling our line. And that goes back to what I was saying. I do think that there was a lot of tenacity. And then to get one in and realize it was the first Torrent goal was super special. So fun playing with this group. We had a blast. Even though we got the loss. And then we heard from Coach O'Rourke, who was talking about the physicality. Like you said, they led in hits. General Manager Megan Turner has put together a good-sized team, and we're going to come out, play physical, and grind some games out. And this was one of, like, they were pretty close to doing that. Overall, we want an identity that's hard to play against. I thought we established that tonight. I would agree. I would absolutely agree. It was a sold-out crowd. Ava, you were there for it. 14,958 at the Pacific Coliseum. That is a tally for the 8th largest attendance in PWHL history and the largest for any team in their primary home venue. Well, I think that's a nod to Montreal there. So, because I guess Montreal has had larger crowds, but they also bounced around a few times. So I don't know who was their primary tenant. Who knows? But I thought this was also interesting. Ava, from the notes that the league sent, Vancouver became the first team to win its inaugural game on home ice. So, right?
Well, I guess they said their inaugural home opener, right? So,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, but still, that's a crazy stat that every other team lost their inaugural home opener. So I hope Seattle can do it too.
Come on, Seattle. Vancouver is like, come on, they set the bar. So that is wild to me. Again, Nursey gets the first goal. And then, I have to talk about my girl, Teresa Vanishova. Now, there's two things we have to talk about, and it's so on brand for her. I first want to talk about that amazing back check in overtime to win the puck back for Vancouver in neutral zone. Then she makes a beautiful pass to Abby Barine to get the win for Vancouver. I know you're a Seattle fan, probably nothing that you want to relive, but from a hockey perspective, I will take this as more of the high-level national reporter. That was fantastic hockey. It was a beautiful, beautiful play.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful. And honestly, I was happy for the other 14,000 fans, 14,957 for Vancouver, because I was like, yeah, that was beautiful. Like, that's how you end a game, So everybody got what they paid for that came to the Coliseum that night.
100%. And I know you're a part of an inside joke here, but let's just say that there have been people who've maybe alluded to that Vanishova, while a good player, is not necessarily an elite player. I vehemently disagree with that, but if you've been following me for years, you know that I love Team Czechia. I love how the Czech players bring some sauce to women's hockey, and I absolutely think that Teresa Vanishova is an elite level player. But again, we'll have that conversation as we continue here on the 206 Sports Collective, and I will let the person countering make their own argument. But another thing that we know with Vanishova, she led Ottawa in goals last season, but she also, Ava, led Ottawa and was among, if not the highest in the league when it came to penalty minutes. She put a big time hit on Aneta Teyralova, her fellow countrywoman. It did not lead to a penalty, but it might have led to an injury.
Yeah. So the official word from the team is that it's a lower body injury. They're going to assess her here in Seattle. So we don't exactly know what her status is, but that was a scary moment to witness in person because, I mean, we didn't really know what was going on. Then we realized it was Teyralova, and we're like, oh no, because, hockey players never show that they're in pain. So it was a scary moment for sure. So yeah, wishing her all the best, and I hope she's okay.
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
huge part of that blue line for the Seattle Torrent, a veteran, just so silky smooth. I was talking to some of the gloves off crew, and I love watching skating styles because they're so different for hockey players. And Teralova, one of the top skaters, quite honestly, from my eye test for the Seattle Torrent team, it looked like as Vanishova made the body contact that Teralova might have just positioned her leg. It looked like it was the right side in the knee area, and she like made a movement at the last second, and that's what maybe got jostled as Teralova was making the body contact, and then they went into the boards. So and you could see Vanishova immediately was bereft, was very concerned because, again, that's her Czech teammate. And again, like you said, Teralova will be evaluated, so we don't want to, speculate or anything. We do know, as you reported, its lower body looked to be that right knee, just in how she was responding after the hit. So we'll see there. But, the good and the bad when it comes to Vanishova's game. I think what I love overall from the Czech players is that, like you said about Gosling or even Hillary Knight, who, I don't think they're considered extremely tall just in like the general population, and not the tallest that we've seen in hockey. At least Steckline is still up there. I mean, Layla Edwards also, but the Czech team, they are not big players. Like, they're not 5'10", 5'11". They're not even necessarily like super stocky players, right? But they play so scrappy. So we hope that Teralova will bring some of that energy back to any recovery that she might need. And hopefully it is a swift one so we can get to see her throughout the season. And of course, we hope that doesn't derail any plans that she might have had to play with Team Czechia for the Olympics. All right, Ava, let's wrap up here with goaltending. You got to see Emrance Mashmeyer go against Corrine Schroeder. And I think that both goaltenders definitely kept their team in the game.
Agreed. And it's funny because when you look at the final score line, it's like 4-3, and it's like, whoa, like that's a lot of goals. But like, it could have been a lot more because there was so many like breakaway chances that Corrine Schroeder denied.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's what I'm saying about being on the back foot. That goes back to what you said about O'Rourke saying some self-inflicted, because there were definitely some opportunities. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Maureen got the game-winning goal in OT, but I think she also got a breakaway earlier in the game. And you're just like, what? But Corrine Schroeder was, up to the task for sure. And again, so was Emrance Mashmeyer. We know that Mashmeyer's season last year for Ottawa ended prematurely with an injury that gave way for Gwyneth Phillips to become quite the standout star. And you love to see that. And also, I think for a lot of people, again, Rachel and I have talked about this on a previous podcast on another platform, but also I think the injury to Mash and thus Gwyneth Phillips stepping in, it also probably led to Mashmeyer even being available for Vancouver to build their team around.
Yeah, that is correct. And that's why expansion is awesome, because obviously, like, I think Phillips and Mashmeyer both deserve to be like a starting goaltender, right? So yeah,
yes,
it's
exactly.
just awesome to see her back on the ice. And like, it's easy to take it for granted. Like, of course, Mashmeyer is going to be good, but it's like, well, she has to be helped off the ice last year. So don't take this for granted. Like, it's just awesome to see her back out there, especially in an Olympic year. I'm just super happy for her.
100%. All right. So the Seattle Torrent still looking for their first regular season win. They've only played the one game, and they will host the two-time Walter Cup champions. That is the Minnesota Frost. And we see that they dropped their first game to Toronto, a 2-1 game. that was on Friday as well, earlier in the day, because they were not on the West Coast, aka left coast. But we saw that again, the Minnesota Frost coming in, looking to three-peat. Can they be like the Houston Comets in the first 4 seasons of the WNBA and sweep the first 4? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. They're only halfway there, but it is really interesting to see. Kendall Coyne Schofield scored the lone goal for Minnesota in that game. Ella Shelton scored for Toronto. And also we had Kiara Zanon scored in that game. Spooner had a 2-point night also for Toronto. What do you want to see for the Seattle Torrent as they come home to Climate Pledge Arena? You will be there. I know I will be there. I'm excited for that. What do you want to see for this team? And is there anything extra, any extra juice that you want to see them play with, knowing that they're going up against someone I know you're tired of talking about when it comes to winning, and that's the Minnesota Frost?
Yeah. For me, I think it's going to be all about defense, because as you previously mentioned, like a lot of how we got burned in this first game, we've only played Vancouver, but a lot of how we got burned was on the speed part, right? And when I think of Minnesota, I just think speed. I think offense. I think Coyne. I think Heisey. So like, it's going to be all about defense and shutting down that speed. So
yeah, I think you're 100% correct. And again, I think there's plenty of giddy up on this Seattle Torrent team. We saw that. I thought they were very good on the back check. That is a skill not everyone possesses. And again, back checking led to the goal for Vancouver, as we talked about, with Teresa Vanishova setting up Abby Boreen. So it has its role. And again, I don't think that Seattle's game plan in the long term is to have to react as much as they did at points in the game against Vancouver. So you're right. And how do you beat speed? By suffocating it with more speed. And so I think that's a part of it. But like you said, defense is a part of it. And for me, defense is about making smart decisions, not always the quick decision, but the smart decision and communication. And so that's going to be something that I'm personally keeping an eye on. Sometimes, especially when you have a brand new team, you have players that are brand new to each other, you almost have to over communicate until it's like, okay, I got it. I know you want the puck, and so I'd be okay with Seattle over communicating, whether that's in this next game or even in the next handful of practices, so that they get that muscle memory to accelerate a little bit more to help them out in those moments, I think is what I'd like to see. But Ava, always a pleasure to have you on here. And I say that because we've podcasted before, but I should say, I'm getting used to this. I should say, I'm so grateful that you have brought your talents over to Black Rosie Media here, as we now are, doing all of our hockey content under Black Rosie Media, no other affiliations. We're super excited to continue to talk Seattle Torrent with you. And hopefully you'll still want to talk once a week as we continue to build out our coverage here on 206 Sports Collective. We also will have some more things coming. We already have a Seattle Storm podcast. We have a New York Liberty podcast. And actually, Brian Florentin, who's my co-host of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, and Roberta Rodriguez, who's my co-host for Tempestagi Talk, which is our Seattle Storm Talk. The three of us are going to get on the mics and on Monday talk about the WNBA coaching carousel and why the NBA is now a feeder for head coaches in the WNBA. What do we like about that? What's good about that? How is it indicative of an evolution in the game? And what are the missed opportunities, especially for homegrown talent, aka WNBA players who then want to transition into coaches? So if that's your jam, make sure you are subscribed to Black Rosie Media, whether it's on our audio platforms or on YouTube and our social media accounts, because we don't just talk that hockey, but we also talk basketball, and we'll have some soccer experts that will be joining us. Not to mention, as I mentioned at the top, the Olympics are coming up in just a couple of months. But for Ava Wood at 365 Hockey Girl, My name is Erica L. Ayala. Thank you so much for joining us for 206 Sports Collective, where we did a recap of the Seattle Torrent's first ever game. And don't forget, they will be at Climate Pledge Arena on the other side of the holiday that I do not personally celebrate, but I do think it's important to be thankful and to be grateful. And so I will say, as we lead into that holiday, although I am trying to decolonize my life, I am very grateful to you, Ava Wood. So thank you again for joining us here on 206 Sports Collective.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And if you want another thing to celebrate, you could celebrate the release of Heated Rivalry in the US, which will also be on the 28th.
Hey, there you go. See, I just needed another reason to celebrate. Let's pop some bottles for that. Thank you for bringing that to light. And we might have to have you come back and talk about that. I also have noticed that you've been getting into some hot water over a Barbie hashtag ? What's up with that?
Oh, yeah. So that was actually on TikTok, but there's a hashtag my hockey Barbies are gay, which is literally true because one of them is based on Marie-Philippe Poulain, who is famously gay. So I was like, this is like factually true.
Yes.
But the TikTok AI flagged that because that's homophobia. And
that's so interesting. Calling a gay person gay is homophobic.
Yes.
Okay. Is it because it's the gay Barbie? Like if you were say MPP is gay, is that okay? But MPP Barbie can't be gay, even though the MPP, like the actual human is. I don't understand. We just need Barbie to release the Laura Stacey Barbie, and then like we leave no doubt, right?
Yes.
Mattel, work on that. Somebody work on that. Tim Hortons, I don't know. Who do we call? Yeah. Somebody's got to put that in the works. But anyway, again, Ava, thank you so much. And we'll talk again soon.
Cool. See ya. Bye.